All right, welcome to another edition of Ask Anthony Live. Remember, if you have a problem you just can't solve, you can always email me at askanthony@firstcoastnews.com. We want to welcome you and thank you for being here with us today. This Ask Anthony that we're going to talk about, this is one that's a little bit personal to me. I want to tell you a little bit of this personal story. Back in 2008, when I was a young reporter for our CBS affiliate in my hometown of Tyler, Texas, I was the weekend anchor and reporter, and I would often cover a number of community events. And one community event that I ended up covering was a bone marrow donation drive for a little girl. Her name was Emma Ruth. So Andy, if you can pull up that picture right there, that's Emma right there. Once again, this was 17 years ago. Sadly, Emma has passed away, but her family, they held a lot of blood marrow donation drives in her honor because she had a rare blood disorder, and they were trying to find a match so she could get the donation that she needed. Once again, she has passed away. She did continue to live for quite a while. I think she passed away back in 2022. But that little girl right there, that's the reason I became a bone marrow donor. I covered a story at a local church in my hometown of Tyler, Texas, where they were having one of those drives. And I signed up right there immediately to become a bone marrow donor. Once again, that was 17 years ago, back in 2008. Just a few weeks ago, I got a phone call that I am a possible match with a gentleman in his 30s who has leukemia. So I was asked to go ahead and start the process. I agreed to it. And Andy, if we can pick up this next picture here, this was last week. I went and donated. Well, I went and actually had several vials of blood drawn there for further testing so we can see if I'm a good match for this gentleman to help him with this issue that he's having with leukemia, to see if my donation can help him basically save his life, to be honest. I want to go ahead and bring in Erica Sevilla. She is the spokesperson for National Marrow Donation Program, NMDP as it's called. It was called Be the Match when I signed up back in 2008, but they have since changed their name to a National Marrow Donation Program. And Erica, thank you for being here with us today. I had a chance to speak to you yesterday just a little bit about my story. And the reason I want to do this, I want to encourage other people to become bone marrow donors because I know how important it is. So let's talk about the process and how someone can become a donor. It all starts with basically a swab in the cheek.
That is correct, Anthony. In order to join the NMDP Registry of Blood Stem Cell Donors, you can visit nmdp.org and you're going to have a cheek swab kit mailed to you. And that looks like this swab. It is called a buccal swab, and it's going to collect the cells from the inside of your cheek. You swab the inside of your cheek for 10 seconds on each side, and then you return the sample in a postage paid envelope, and it goes to our biorepository where your cheek sample is typed, and then you'll be entered into the NNDP registry. We have more than 9 million donors, potential donors, on the registry in the United States. More than 42 million people worldwide have signed up and said that they'd be willing to help a patient in need of a blood stem cell transplant or a bone marrow transplant. And so that's the start. It starts with a cheek swab, and you do need to be between the ages of 18 to 40 years old to join. And there's a reason for that, because research has shown that younger donors are going to help improve outcomes for patients in need of a transplant.
And that's exactly how it started with me as well, Erica, at that drive at the church I mentioned in my hometown. They had kits out there and people were helping to collect those swabs. So let's talk about what happens, how basically you match donors with patients.
Sure. So first, we need to understand that the blood stem cells that we're looking to replace, those are found within your bone marrow. And that tells your body essentially to create white blood cells and red blood cells and platelets. And so when somebody has leukemia or lymphoma or aplastic anemia or sickle cell disease, that's a problem typically found in the bone marrow in their blood stem cells. So, in order to help treat or cure a patient, we want to replace their unhealthy cells with the healthy cells from a donor. But the matching of these cells or this tissue type is very complex. This is not as simple as finding a matching blood type, for example. A lot of people say, I've got a very common blood type. Can I help this patient? Indeed, there are 12,000 patients every year who turn to the NMDP registry in the US and search for a potential matching donor. Now, the match is we're looking at something called HLA or human leukocyte antigens, but just know that these are protein markers found on your cells that are going to tell your body that those cells belong there. Otherwise, the patient may reject the donor cells, or more often, the donor cells could attack the patient if there's not a strong enough match. So there's a lot of complexities that go into this matching process, and that's why we do have millions of potential donors on the registry. Some people may never get a call as a match for a patient, and when you do get a call, you might be the only match for a patient. It all goes down to genetic tissue type, and it's a very rare and very amazing experience to match with somebody.
And Erica, after 17 years, I didn't think I would be called, but as I mentioned, if you're just now joining us, I was called a few weeks ago to help someone who is currently in need of a donation. So let's talk a little bit about the process. If someone is a match, what happens next?
So once a patient's doctor determines that they're going to need that blood stem cell transplant, they search the registry, the NMDP registry of millions of donors. They look for the best potential match for a patient. If there's multiple matches, several people may be called to do some additional testing. And those are like the vials of blood that you provided. And we'll be looking for some additional potential antigens and find out who really truly is that best match for the patient, so that doctors can prepare their patient to have a successful transplant. And for the patient side, it looks more like a blood transfusion because at the end of your donation, as a donor, you'd be holding up a bag of your blood stem cells, and it's just a small bag, but those are life-saving cells that can actually cure blood cancer.
And that's a big misconception, Erica. When I told people that I was going to go ahead and move into this, go ahead and start the process of seeing if I'm a good match for this gentleman, they said, oh, bone marrow donations, that's painful, right? But that's a big misconception that's currently out there.
Correct. Hollywood's done a great job of dramatizing bone marrow donation. And the reality is that 90% of the time, when asked to donate bone marrow or blood stem cells, it's a non surgical procedure. It resembles a plasma or platelet donation. So, leading up to donation day, you would receive injections of a drug called filgrastim. And that helps your body to overproduce those blood forming cells. They this way they leave your bone marrow, they flow into your peripheral blood, which means that then they can be extracted through a needle in one arm, similar to a plasma platelet donation. The blood comes out, it's filtered through an apheresis machine. Blood stem cells are collected, and the remaining cells that we don't need for the patient are returned to your other arm. So, what that means is that you're awake for anywhere from 4 hours to 6 hours. If the donor, is a smaller build and doesn't produce as many cells as quickly, oftentimes women may need to go back for a second day. But in general, it's a couple of hours. You're awake during the process. There's no pain involved. We hear maybe some mild discomfort, sometimes just side effects from the filgrastim drug that helps your body to overproduce these blood forming cells. And the majority of donors say that, it was something they would absolutely do again. Occasionally, we have donors who get called to donate more than once. And we recently had a 25-year-old named Noah, and he donated twice, once via peripheral blood stem cells, which is the non surgical way. And 10% of the time, doctors will request bone marrow, and that would be the liquid. stem cells would be extracted from behind your hip bones. That's through a surgical procedure, but it's performed under anesthesia, so you don't feel anything. And so the stem cells are extracted, and you might feel sore, like you had either a fall if you're out ice skating or rollerblading and you have a fall and you're sore for a couple of weeks. That would be the bone marrow donation process.
And Erica, I posted about this on my social media pages, and I had one gentleman, he asked me about the cost. He said he heard as a donor that you have to pay for everything, and that's not true. So let's talk about if NMDP covers the cost if I donate.
That's correct. There is zero cost to our donors. So NMDP covers all expenses related to the donation process. Any of the blood that we take in advance, the physical that will be conducted before you go to donate, and then any costs related to if you have expenses such as getting a pet sitter or childcare, or if there are some missed wages for work, we can reimburse those costs so that it's absolutely free for the donor. And we want to make it as simple as possible for people to say yes to giving somebody that second chance at life.
I mean, it's a very simple process. I'm telling you, the representative I spoke to on the phone who called me, she was great about easing my fears and just telling me, don't worry, we will take care of everything. And that includes travel as well, because I know that this is a special procedure. So you might have to travel to donate, correct, Erica?
That's right. And really, you're on the timeline of the patient. The patient may need those cells sooner than later, and so NMDP is going to schedule you at the facility that has availability. If it's an apheresis donation, you might be going to West Palm Beach. We have a partner there, a Gift of Life at NMDP Donation Center, and or you might end up going to the NMDP Donation Center in Seattle. And if we have to fly you out there, then we cover any flight, any meals, hotel, and then we also allow our donors to bring a guest to keep them company for the day. So we cover their travel expenses as well.
And one big reason that I really wanted to talk about this and encourage others to become bone marrow donors, the need for donors from diverse backgrounds. For example, I'll tell you, I asked the woman on the phone who I was speaking with, I said, am I the only donor for this gentleman? Are there others out there? She told me, she was honest. She said, I see that you're African American. She said there might be a chance that he has a limited pool to pick from when it comes to a donor. So let's talk about that, the need for donors from diverse backgrounds.
That's right. So patients are most likely to find a matching donor in somebody who shares their ethnicity or just their geographical background. If you think about it, think about where your grandparents came from and where their grandparents came from. When you talk about your HLA type or your tissue type, that's something that's passed down from generation to generation. And so likely you will share the ethnicity with your donor, between the donor and the patient. That said, African Americans have the hardest time finding a fully matched donor on the NMDP registry or the worldwide registries. Here in the U.S., just 8% of the registry is African American. It's more than 55% white. So, your chances are going to be decreased if we don't have enough of representation. And so, we encourage everybody. If you're healthy and if you have a spirit, you want to do something and give hope to patients, we encourage you to request a swab kit, educate yourself about the process, make sure you're committed, swab your cheek and turn that cheek sample in, because you could be that one match for a patient who is fighting leukemia or fighting lymphoma. And the more diversity we have, we know the more matches we'll be able to make.
An opportunity to save a life. I mean, you can't beat that. And like you said, Erica, it's just such a simple process. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we go today?
Just that we have stem cells in our body that have the ability to cure cancer, and people don't realize that we can actually help save a life. And so it just starts with a simple cheek swab. You can go to nmdp.org. You can register as a potential registry member, swab your cheek, send it back. There's no cost to you. You'll only be called for additional testing if you are identified as a match. So we just ask that if you do sign up, that you remain committed to answering that phone call and helping to save a life.
That's right. Remain committed even 17 years later, like myself. So, Erica, thank you so much for joining us and for being here and explaining the process. We encourage everyone who is watching that you will go to the website and become a donor yourself. I can't say this enough. It's so simple, and you have the power to save a life. Remember, if you have any questions, you can always email me at askanthony@firstcoastnews.com. I'm going through the process right now myself, and so I can help guide you along. Feel free to reach out to me anytime.